Hello, everybody. How are you guys? I'm still down here in Long Beach. Today's Saturday. I'm looking at a sign that says Skylinks, which is a golf course across from the airport. And I remember playing there years ago. Years ago, I played that course. Very nice course. If you ever get a chance and you're in Long Beach, California, play Skylinks Golf Course. Meanwhile, guys, this series of videos that I've created in relation to my book, Joe Ditzel Has Some Problems in Texas, this latest series of videos have been called 10 Things You Can Only Do in Dallas, 10 Things You Can Only Do in Austin. And the response has been off the charts. So somebody in Fort Worth called me and they said, man, can you do something on Fort Worth? Because we're always in the shadow of Dallas, but we got this cool city over here. Do one of your videos about Fort Worth. Well, your wish is my command. Guys, this video is titled 10 Things You Can Only Do in Fort Worth, Texas. Number one, did you know that Fort Worth has a long history of being the county seat of Tarrant County? And of course, Tarrant County is named after Terrence Tarrant. Terrence Tarrant was one of the founding fathers of Fort Worth long before it was even a fort. Before it was a fort, it was a trading post. And Terrence Tarrant was the head of the Fort Worth trading post. And you could go in there, you could buy beef jerky, you could buy coffee, sugar, salt. You could buy some marbles. They actually had marbles back in those days. And everything was in these bins. Just regular barrels. And Terrence Tarrant was the first one to come up with bins that had that could fit on a shelf, and then they had a scoop, and you could just reach in with the scoop and scoop out everything you needed. Now, the only problem they had was when people tried to scoop the marbles would fall over the floor, and people would step on them and roll and spin and fall and hit their head, and that was the first lawsuits in Texas were actually in that trading post. But that was just a unfortunate occurrence. Mainly, the thing that we're focusing on here is you can see this original trading post in Fort Worth, the Terrence Tarrant Trading Post, which later became Fort Worth, which they built around the trading post. So not only can you see the fort, you can see the original trading post. And guys, believe it or not, they still sell marbles in the Terrence Tarrant Trading Post. And of course, the Fort Worth today is the county seat of Tarrant County. Guys, it's over 350 square miles. A lot of people don't realize it. And seeing the trading post is the first thing on our list of 10 things you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas. Amazing. Of course, today, Fort Worth is part of the dual metro area, Dallas-Fort Worth. And in fact, for many years, they called it that. You didn't really hear people say Dallas. They'd say Dallas-Fort Worth, and that's why the airport is DFW. Okay? A lot of people think that means Dallas for the win, but it actually means Dallas-Fort Worth. That's the code that they gave the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. And, of course, today it's Dulles, and there's like 7-8 different airports in the area now. 7-8 different major airports. And so one of the airports that is smaller that you may want to see if you can fly into, if you're going to fly into the Fort Worth area, try to fly into Jenny's Airport. Now, Jenny's Airport used to be just an airstrip, and Jenny and her family lived on the airstrip. Every morning they would shoo their cows off of the airstrip so that guys could land planes. And the reason that they would land in that area is that it was much cheaper, that you didn't have to have really any flying ability. If you just were, even kids, like 15-year-old kids would jump in the family plane, fly it around. They didn't even have a learner's permit for the road, but they could land the plane at Jenny's, and Jenny's would look the other way in terms of FAA regulations. They'd look the other way. So all kinds of people, this is in the early days, keep in mind, this is in like the 40s and the 50s. laws were a little bit more lax, and it was more of a swashbuckling type of town, swashbucklers. So these kids and regular folks and women and, some animals, sometimes an animal would land a plane at Jenny's Airstrip. Now, of course, today it's grown, it's expanded, and now they have a couple runways and it's paved and it's a regular airport, right? It's not one of the big ones, but if you want to experience something, you can still land, you can still get a flight into Jenny's Airstrip, and believe it or not, you'll still see the cows lining the runways where they had to shoo them off every morning. Guys, it's an experience that you will only get in Fort Worth, Texas. Jenny's Airstrip, that's number 2. Number 3, a lot of towns, they get big and they kind of get too big for their britches. You ever notice? They kind of get a little snotty, a little snooty, a little highfalutin, a little nose in the air. Well, you don't have that in Fort Worth. Fort Worth are regular people. They're straight up people. They're friendly people. They're the kind of people that say hi to you. How you doing? Even if they don't know you on the street, you're walking by them and they go, hey, how you doing? Now, if you're from LA, if you're from New York, you might look at them like, is this a scam? Are they trying to scam me? Well, it's not a scam. It's the real deal. And the way that you know this for sure is you go to downtown Fort Worth, and there is a store down there called Leave Your Quarters, Leave Your Change. It's called Leave Your Change. And you can go in there and take anything out. There's nobody works there. They leave it up to you to leave the price, the cost, leave the money on the counter. All right, so let's say you get some gum and maybe you get a Twizzler. Let's say it comes to $6 because you get the highfalutin gum that, comes in those individual packages, right? Not just a block of gum that you pull off like a chaw tobacco. So it's $6. Well, just leave the change. That's what it's called, leave the change. Now, it doesn't have to be change, guys. You can use bills, but you just throw it in the box there. And if you don't have exact change, you just take out the change that you're owed. And this works in Fort Worth and has at the Leave Your Change store for the last 25 years. And the only reason it works is that everybody is friendly, they're trusting. Now, sometimes you get a New Yorker coming down there acting all obnoxious, and they try to just look around and they try to take out a 20. Well, now listen, if you're an obnoxious New Yorker, you try to pull that stunt, remember that there's lots of concealed carry down in Texas, and this is a state that defined the Old West. Okay, I'm just saying, I don't care if you're from Queens or the Bronx or whatever, they're gonna set you straight down in Fort Worth. So if you're buying a magazine, if you're buying some a Gatorade or something, guys, put in the right change, or you're gonna feel a 6-gun, okay, in your ribs, and a growly voice is gonna say, "Boy, you better put in the right change." So that's all I'm saying. That's just a public service announcement. But don't worry about it. Everybody's super friendly, and that's why that particular store exists. And it's something that you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas. That's number 3. Number 4. Along those lines, there's a lot of respect for the elderly, okay? And because of the lifestyle, the laid-back approach, there's a lot of people that live a long time down in Fort Worth. Now, in Dallas, the life expectancy is a little lower. And the reason being is they're living the fast life down there, guys. They're living the fast life in Dallas. I mean, there's a sort of a keeping up with the Joneses over there at the big Dallas town. D-town, we call it. And in Fort Worth, they don't care about keeping up with the Joneses. What you do is you buy a house or build your own house with your own sweat in Fort Worth, and you live in it for the rest of your life. Maybe you'll add on addition if you get twins or triplets. You're only expecting one kid, and out comes a whole band of brothers and sisters, right? Quadruplets or whatever. So now you got to add on to your house. But in other words, they're not living in a home to try to impress people. They're living in a home to live in it. I know that sounds strange. But over in Dallas, of course, they got the McMansions, and everybody's walking around with blonde hair that they came out. The Lord gave them brunette hair, but all of a sudden they're blonde. Well, Everybody's blonde. You get, I don't know what it is. They're selling more blonde hair dye in Dallas than in the entire other 49 states. So the point of it being that if you want to build your own house, they have a store in Dallas that will sell you everything you need for $4,700. All the material you need to build a house. Now look, it's not going to be a big house, but remember, this is Fort Worth where people are real. So this is going to be about 100 square foot house. You're going to have room for a bed, a desk. And now the thing is, you're gonna have to step outside to the outhouse that comes with the package, the building package. You know, you buy it as a package, and they'll drop it off on a truck. But the thing about it is, for $4,700, you can get into a house of your own in Fort Worth. You don't have to worry about the cold. You don't need an insulated house because it's Texas. It's hot all the time. It's hot 365 days a year, and you know. So you have to step out into an outhouse. Hey, just think of it as retro, because that's the way they used to do it in the 1850s, guys. And that is another thing you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas, because they're looking out for the little guy. That's number 3. Number 4. Again, I've lost count, but let's go with number 4. Number 4, see, I have to keep these shorter. That would help. Let's try it. We'll keep them a little shorter. And that way it won't be quite so dull. It won't be quite so boring. All right, number 4, in Fort Worth, Texas, the Worth Museum. You would think, well, they've got all the artifacts of the early days of Fort Worth, but that's not what the Worth Museum is. The Worth Museum has the net worth of everybody in town, and this is why everybody's so friendly, because they know what everybody's worth. So when somebody walks by you on the street, you can kind of eyeball them and go, "Oh, that's old Jimmy Jones," and I know he's worth probably about $100,000 because I know he's into that Bitcoin, right? You can go down to the Fort Worth Museum, and they have the worth of everybody in the city on the museum, guys. And you can take and download from Google Play or the Apple App Store the Fort Worth Museum app, and it's one of these artificial intelligence virtual reality apps. So you just hold it up and it'll send a beam out to another resident in Fort Worth, and it'll come back with their net worth, and vice versa. They're going to know your net worth. But the idea is that we all know how much everybody's worth, so there's no reason to get all uppity. We know, right? And just keep it friendly, keep it like family. And that's why Fort Worth community is like an interlocking ropes. Okay, you got the strength of 10 ropes in one. All right, you're not gonna intimidate anybody from Fort Worth, because they'll come at. Not only will they come after you, their whole family will. You have a whole town coming after you. Okay, so don't mess with people down there. All right, that's number 4 of the things you can only do in Fort Worth, guys. Fort Worth, Texas. Number 5 is a fun one. We've all seen paintball. Maybe you've played paintball. Maybe you're a paintball fan, a paintball aficionado, right? You got the paintball guns. You got paintballs. You order paintballs on Amazon. Maybe you make your own paintballs. You fill up the bathtub with the paint and you stick them in those little balls. You seal them with some glue. I don't know how they make them, but maybe that's your thing. Well, the World Paintball Championship is held every year in Fort Worth, as is on the designated World Paintball Fields. See what I'm saying? They have their own fields dedicated to paintball. Now, these aren't like 100 yards by 75 yards or whatever the heck. These are, you're talking about 10,000 acres. So it's like the Old West. You can get on a horse and you can ride a horse around, not just on Old Town Road. You can ride around, and now they're introducing off-road motorcycles. So however you want to do it, you want to be Old West style or modern style, you can get your groups together like some kind of corporate building, team spirit building enterprise, and go there to the World Paintball fields, and just have at it, just shooting paintballs at each other all day long. You'll come back looking like some kind of modern art project. You'll have so many paint splatters all over your body, and you'll be laughing your head off and loving it. But the thing is, that's number 5, and something that you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas. Number 6. Well, of course, it's such an open area, that central part of Texas. You got land for miles and miles. And, what are you going to do with all that land? Well, of course, when the wind blows and the clouds turn a little dangerous, well, what kicks up in central Texas? That's right, cyclones. And what are you gonna, they've had cyclones for years, them twisters coming through. Well, now they have a new power plant outside of Fort Worth that takes advantage of, it's called Cyclone Power, guys. You've seen wind power, sun power. Now they got Cyclone Power. It was developed by 2 guys at the University of Fort Worth. And they came up with this idea of tapping the power of cyclones in order to offset some of the energy needs of the city. And to this day, it's June of 2019, you got half of Fort Worth powered by Cyclone Power. And what they do is when the cyclone season hits, they tap the power, they grab the energy of the cyclone, and they put it into batteries, giant batteries that are in downtown Fort Worth. They're about 3 stories tall, and they look like regular batteries, guys. They look like regular Everready or whatever off-brand you buy. And maybe at Walmart you get the off-brand that don't last as long, but it's cool, and that is Cyclone Power that you're not going to see anywhere else except in Fort Worth, Texas. Number 7. I lost track again. Number 7 in Fort Worth, Texas. Dallas is kind of taking the front seat. They've kind of become the big brother. But you know what happens when you don't have the front seat, where you're in the background a little bit? It gives you a chance to innovate, to try things, to fail, to come back again, look at different. Whereas in Dallas, there's such a winning mentality that they don't allow themselves to lose. And every champion knows that you got to embrace failure. You got to embrace loss, because it's through the losses that you learn the skills to become a champion. Well, that's what they're doing over in Fort Worth. They're trying different products. They're trying different innovations. They're looking at what can we do to innovate and lead Texas into the next century, not just this century, but the next century. And so they've come up with one cool idea. There's a bunch, but let's focus on one. It's called the Bionic baseball glove. Now, of course, baseball is America's pastime, but the baseball glove really hasn't changed in the last 100 years. The Bionic baseball glove was developed in Fort Worth. Not only can you catch the ball with dead accuracy, the glove will power the ball itself. It'll power up the ball, so that using the same arm strength, you can now throw the ball 3 or 4 miles, because the ball itself will propel itself in the air. It'll take that initial velocity and multiply it. Now, this is an idea developed in Fort Worth. They wouldn't do it in Dallas, okay? They wouldn't fund something like this. It takes years to develop this kind of idea. So now you can have 2 baseball games going on at the same time and throw the ball from first base, okay, in one stadium on one side of Fort Worth, and get a guy out on third, a guy trying to catch third, right? You can get him out in third at another baseball game. It makes it much more efficient, much more action-oriented, and this is something that could only be developed in Fort Worth, because in Dallas, they just want winning. Well, how do you develop winning? Through losing, and through failure, and through attempts, and through trying, okay? So that's what they do in Fort Worth. They stay in the background, and they try new ideas, and they came up with winners like the Bionic baseball glove, powering baseball throws 3-4 miles across town into the other stadium. Unbelievable. That's something that you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas. That's number 7. Number 8. How many times has your family looked at each other and go, what do you guys want to do tonight? Want to go to the movies? We went to the movies. Want to go to the rock concert? The young kids can't get in there. You need to be 18. Maybe you say, let's go to the mall. We've been going to the mall every weekend. What's new? What's exciting? What's different? Well, you know what they have in Fort Worth? You can ride real dragons. Now, this started down in Chinatown in Fort Worth. The punks down there, right? Street kids. They were getting into trouble, and what they would do is ride the dragons. They have live dragons down in Chinatown. I'm talking about real dragons, not the fake ones or animated dragons. These are real dragons, guys. You're not going to find them anywhere else but Chinatown in Fort Worth, Texas. And these street kids would jump on them and ride them, trying to be cool in front of the tourists, and the tourists would throw them money, right? Well, now they said, hey, we got something going. Again, it's that innovation that's only in Fort Worth. This idea of taking advantage of opportunities as they present themselves. So now you can pay $20. The whole family can jump on. $20 per head, not for the whole family. Come on. These are real dragons, guys. This isn't fake. It costs some money. But for $20, that's pretty reasonable to ride for 10 minutes on the back of a dragon, and they will. The beauty of it is, because you're on the back, the dragon cannot turn their head far enough behind them to hit you with the flames. But until you get on the back, you got to be careful. You got to stand behind the asbestos walls they have there until they let you onto the dragon. Be careful, because otherwise they'll hit you with those flames coming out of their nostrils, and it's going to be bad for your family, right? That's going to be a hospital bill right there. So jump on the back of those dragons in Chinatown, ride them for $20. Your whole family can get on at one time. They take 20, 30 people, and unless you got a super big family. And then, you might need 2 dragons. But that's something that you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas. Number 9. Fort Worth, guys, is in the shadow of Dallas, but they're not in the shadow of our hearts. Our hearts are with Fort Worth, because Fort Worth is the kind of town that takes care of their people. And what's one example of that? Well, we all know that one of the persistent problems in metropolitan areas around the country is people that are fake bell ringers at Christmas. We all know the bell ringers of the different organizations ringing the bell, raising money for the poor. Well, what do you get? What do you get in sometimes? You get fakers, you get scammers ringing that bell. What are they doing? They're raising money for one charity, themselves. Okay? They're not, and they put on the garb of a fake organization. You think they're with the main organizations that we all know, but they're not. They're not. They're fakers. They fake the sign. And you can always tell the homemade sign, the lines are a little crooked and misspellings, Well, what do? You think they throw them in the clink down there in Fort Worth? No. It's a loving town. It's a family town. They put them into rehab. They put them into bell ringer rehab. Okay? They try to set them on the straight path. They teach them the ways of a true bell ringer, so that next Christmas they can raise money and stay right in the eyes of their fellow Fort Worthians, Fort Worthers, Fort Worthans, Fort Worthistas, Fort Worthistas, and in the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of a higher power. And that's because it's a loving town. It's a town that sticks together. And they are going to rehabilitate those fake bell ringers. And that's what happens. But it's something you can only do in Fort Worth, Texas. Number 10. I think it's number 10. Our final thing of our list of 10 things you can only do in Fort Worth comes back to this whole idea of community, which we've used as a theme, as a single thread that weaves together all 10 of these on this list. And that is, in many communities, the leaders of the town, the mayor, the city council, the school board, they talk out of one side of their mouth to the press and to the media and to the public with their pronouncements and their press releases. But then over here, they're doing double dealing deals with people with money. And what happens is that the regular people over here get caught and they don't see the benefit, whereas over here the rich get richer. Well, in Fort Worth, they've figured it out. And what they do is they don't say anything to anybody. And the idea is that silence is golden. Remember when your mom would say to you, just be quiet. For the rest of dinner, your mission is to not speak. maybe it was just me. Because I got that a lot. And I've got the gift of gab, guys. I can make stories up off the top of my head. I've been doing it since I was 3 years old. The downside, the dark side of that ability is sometimes mom would just had enough. And she'd just say, just zip it. And I'd say, well, no. And I'd say, well, but no. Zip, zip. Okay. Well, that's what they do down in Fort Worth. They've realized the beauty of silence, the elegance of silence, the utility of silence. And so they don't say anything to anybody. They just get things done. They get things done. That's how they do it. They don't talk. All action. No talk at all. They don't even talk to each other. Texting, emails, okay? Maybe a late night phone call if they're in a sticky situation. But for the most part, during the day, if you walk into the chambers of the leaders of the city, you're going to hear nothing. Because they decided years ago to eliminate all verbal communication, at least during the business day. And that focuses their minds on action. And the result is one of the best communities in the entire United States, Fort Worth. Fort Worth, Texas. And it's something that other communities might want to emulate because of their positive results. But for now, it's one of our 10 things that they only do, and you can only do, in Fort Worth, Texas.